Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into something pretty big today. The idea of achieving true mastery. Not just, being good at something, but reaching this end point of dedication and learning. The source material even calls it becoming homo magister, the master.
Exactly. And our mission here really is to cut through all the noise. I mean, we know you, our listener, you're dealing with constant info overload, distractions everywhere. What people want is the practical path. How do you actually transform your mind, unlock that creative power?
Right, so we're not talking about some kind of magic bullet or, being born a genius. It's about the process. What's the real step-by-step way to get this power? The research lays out a pretty clear journey. It starts with figuring out your unique life's task, then going through this, well, frankly, grueling apprenticeship phase,
Yeah, it is.
and then finally arriving at genuine intuition.
And crucially, there's that fourth piece, which often gets overlooked, social intelligence. Because let's face it, internal brilliance isn't much use if you get bogged down by the people around you.
Okay, let's start right at the beginning then. The life's task. This isn't just like picking a career because it pays well. The sources talk about it as this deep inner force, almost like a seed planted at birth, tied to our unique genetic makeup.
Yeah, it's the closest thing we have to maybe a sort of personal blueprint. And what's really interesting is how clear this often is when we're kids. Before we get all self-conscious or worried, it just pulls us towards things that fit our natural inclinations, like a kind of persistent curiosity.
You definitely see that with someone like Leonardo da Vinci. It wasn't just painting. His core thing was exploring, understanding the natural world. He didn't have formal teachers at first, right? He just went out into the woods, looked at streams, sketched what he saw.
Exactly. Nature was his only model. And that really forced him to observe reality way more intensely than his peers who were just copying other artists.
It's like an internal command, not a choice.
It is. Or look at Ingmar Bergman, the filmmaker. The source calls it a lifelong obsession. It started when he was just a boy. He traded all his toys, his soldiers, everything for a cinematograph.
Wow.
Yeah. And boom, that magic of light, shadow, moving images, it set his path right then and there.
Okay, but if it's so clear in childhood, why do so many of us feel lost later on? What dampens that connection? What's the counterforce?
Well, it's mostly external pressures, isn't it? The pressure to fit in, what your family expects, worrying about money right now, listening to friends or parents pushing you towards something seen as, lucrative and comfortable. All that noise just drowns out the inner voice.
And that pressure to pick one thing must be really tough if you have lots of different interests.
Oh, absolutely. You see that with Yuki Matsuoka. Growing up in Japan in the 70s, the system was super rigid, took one specialty early on. But she loved math, science, sports, building things, all sorts of stuff.
Sounds frustrating.
It left her really depressed, actually, suppressing all those parts of herself. She only found her way when she realized she could create something totally new, neurobotics, that combined all her passions. It was finding a structure that finally fit her.
So, the takeaway here is, if you're feeling a bit lost, the first move isn't searching outside for answers. It's always inward. Reconnecting with that unique force you might have pushed down for years. That's step one.
And right after you identify that force, bam, you hit the wall, the apprenticeship.
Which, the sources don't sugarcoat this. They make a really key point. The goal here is not the paycheck or the fancy title or even the diploma.
Correct. The real goal is the transformation. The transformation of your mind and character. You start out with all these ideas, these fantasies about what the work is like. The apprenticeship is where you grind those fantasies against cold, hard reality. It's about mastering your own weaknesses and patience, getting emotional, losing focus, becoming disciplined.
And this is where things get tough, because this is where most people bail, right? The great danger, as the source calls it. You start off excited, then reality hits. The sheer amount of hard, often boring work involved.
Yeah, it's a total motivation crisis. That hard work brings up all this negative stuff. Boredom, frustration, confusion, like why am I not getting this faster? And just paralyzing fear of failing. And when you give in to those feelings,
You stop learning.
you stop learning, you stop observing, the whole process just stops dead. Managing those mundane, difficult emotions is really the core challenge of this phase.
But if you manage to push through that emotional barrier, What's on the other side?
Clarity. You start to actually understand the rules of the game you're playing. You master the basic skills, and then something interesting happens. Your confidence grows, and because you understand more, the subject itself becomes more engaging.
Ah, so it feeds itself.
Exactly. It starts this cycle of accelerated returns. You can practice longer, dig deeper, because it's not just a frustrating slog anymore, it's actually interesting.
Let's look at a couple of strategies for surviving this. First, there's deep observation, kind of submitting to reality. Darwin is the key example here.
Right. Charles Darwin on the HMS Beagle. That 5-year voyage was basically his self-designed masterclass. He started off a bit aimless, but slowly, painstakingly, turned himself into this astute observer of nature. And crucially, on that cramped ship, he learned to avoid pointless fights. He just fit in, accepted the reality of the situation, and poured all his energy into his work.
And his dedication later. It really underscores that point about persistence coming from connection, doesn't
Oh,
it?
absolutely. To prove himself later on, Darwin spent 8 years studying nothing but barnacles.
Barnacles, 8 years.
Yeah, not exactly glamorous, right? But that kind of effort, it doesn't just come from ambition. It comes from what the source calls an intense love of and connection to the subject. That love lets you tolerate 8 years of looking at barnacles.
Okay, so Darwin shows us meticulous diligence. But what about risk? Does the material offer a counterpoint? How do you balance careful work with taking bold steps?
That's where Henry Ford comes in. His strategy was more about embracing failure. And the sources make a really useful point here. There are two kinds of failure. There's the failure of never trying anything that just corrodes you. And then there's bold, adventurous failure, the kind you learn massively from. Mastery requires that second kind.
It's easy to say embrace failure, but Ford's early attempts sound genuinely rough.
Yeah.
Lots of setbacks.
They were painful, yeah. But that pain was the teacher. He realized his failures weren't just about the mechanics of the car, it was the environment. The financiers kept interfering, rushing him, not giving him the space to actually solve the design problems properly.
So it wasn't the engineering itself.
Not entirely. He learned he needed complete independence to get the design perfect. So the lesson wasn't just build a better car, it was build a company structure where a perfect car can be built. He had to control the whole process.
Okay, so you discover your life's task, you survive the character forging apprenticeship, then you arrive at the peak skill, intuition, what actually happens in the mind when that clicks.
Right. And let's be super clear, the sources stress this isn't magic. It's defined very precisely. Intuition is a sudden and immediate seizing of what is real, without the need for words or formulas. It's the payoff from all those years of deep work. You've internalized so much that you just see connections others miss. It's a practical power.
I find the evolutionary angle on this really compelling. It connects this high-level thinking back to basic survival.
It does. It's described as a blend, a mix of the instinctive and the rational, almost like a pre-verbal intelligence. Think about our hunter-gatherer ancestors, right? They needed to make split-second effective decisions during a complex hunt or when facing a threat. They couldn't stop and consciously analyze every little thing.
They'd be lunch.
Exactly. Mastery, in a way, is reclaiming that rapid, efficient processing power.
And this deep-earned intuition is the total opposite of the shortcut trap people fall into.
Oh, completely. That trap is always looking for the easy way. Simple formulas for success, maybe weird rituals, drugs, whatever, promises instant enlightenment or power. Masters just ignore all that noise. They know the one real power they have is the mind they've built through discipline and time. That's what created everything worthwhile in history. Why look elsewhere?
Let's make it concrete. The fighter pilot example, Rodriguez. That really shows this unconscious expertise in action.
Yeah, Rodriguez wasn't a natural. He wasn't one of the golden boys. But he pushed himself incredibly hard in training. Then, in actual combat, facing enemy jets, his reactions like dodging, even jettisoning fuel tanks happened faster than thought.
He couldn't even remember doing it afterwards.
Nope. No conscious decision-making process. His body, his nerves, they intuited a sense of what command should feel like. The knowledge was literally baked into his system.
Okay, so internal mastery is achieved. Clear mind, disciplined, intuitive. But then you have to take this finely tuned instrument back out into the messy world of other people. What happens then?
And that's the huge, often underestimated challenge. No matter how brilliant you are internally, the sources warn about the emotional drain from dealing with people. resistance, office politics, endless political intrigues. It can completely sap your energy.
Energy you need for actual work.
Exactly. If you spend all day fighting social battles, there's nothing left for skill acquisition. So, social intelligence isn't just nice to have. It's essential protection for your mastery journey.
And it seems to boil down to seeing people as they are, not as we wish they were. The source talks about escaping the naive perspective.
Yes, that's when we just project our own feelings, our own rationality onto other people. We assume they'll be fair or logical or kind like we think we are, and then we're constantly shocked and disappointed when they aren't. Mastery demands you drop that self-absorption and see people objectively.
Benjamin Franklin seems like the poster child for figuring this out.
Yeah.
What was his shift?
Well, early on, Franklin got burned. A lot. Misled, betrayed. It cost him. His big breakthrough was adopting this philosophy of complete and radical acceptance of human nature. He realized trying to change people's fundamental nature was pointless.
Like trying to change a rose.
Pretty much. You accept the thorns on a rose, you don't get mad at the rose, you just learn how to handle it carefully. He started seeing difficult, vain, or petty people the same way, just realities to be navigated, not changed.
And that acceptance isn't passive, it's strategic. It removes the emotional sting.
Totally. You stop reacting emotionally and start managing strategically. Franklin used this brilliantly. There was this powerful guy in the assembly, Norris, who became a real opponent after a political fight. Franklin knew direct antagonism would just create a lifelong enemy.
So what did he do?
He did his homework, found out Norris was obsessed with collecting rare books, had one particular volume he was incredibly proud of. So instead of fighting, Franklin wrote Norris a polite note. Said he'd heard about this amazing rare book and would be honored if he could borrow it for a few days. It completely wrong-footed Norris.
Played against expectations.
Exactly. Norris expected more conflict. Instead, he gets this request that subtly flatters his ego, recognizes his status as a connoisseur. He was so pleased he sent the book over immediately, and from then on, they became allies, all through a simple strategic move based on understanding Norris's vanity.
That's masterful maneuvering. This idea of seeing reality clearly. It also applies to how masters look at their own field, doesn't it?
Yes.
Focusing on the how, not just the what.
Yes, huge distinction. Most people see the surface effect, the what. The beautiful building, the impressive result. The master needs to understand the underlying mechanics, the how. Look at Santiago Calatrava, the architect.
Yeah.
After architecture school, he was great at drawing these gorgeous bird-like shapes, but he felt something crucial was missing.
He could draw the bird, but didn't know how it flew.
Precisely. He didn't fundamentally grasp how the buildings would actually stand up, the engineering principles. So what did he do? He went back to school, enrolled in civil engineering.
Wow, after already being an architect.
Yeah, forced himself to think like an engineer. That practical structural understanding gave him a much deeper feel for reality. It allowed him to truly integrate the beauty with the function. How?
Okay, so we've traced this demanding path. Discovering the life task, grinding through the apprenticeship to change your character, unlocking that powerful, non-magical intuition, and finally developing the social intelligence to survive the real world. It's quite a journey to become Homo Magister.
It is. And what this whole map really tells us, especially right now, is pretty crucial. The future isn't going to belong to the easily distracted, the ones overwhelmed by surface-level information. It belongs to people who train themselves through real focus and discipline to handle complexity, to acquire deep, usable skills. Those who settle for easy answers just won't be able to keep up.
The sources really emphasize that our minds are built for this deep work, that by taking our time, focusing, we can reach higher and higher levels of intelligence. It's about working with the natural grain of this amazing instrument we have, developed over millennia. Focused effort is the key.
And that process, working with the grain slowly, deliberately, deeply, it doesn't just build skill, it builds focus. It allows you to see the world and yourself with a clarity you might not think possible. So, if that power is sitting there inside all of us, maybe the question for you to think about this week is, what's one small, focused step you can take today to start working with the grain of your own mind?